Now, I am delighted to welcome the Shadow Minister for International Trade, Gareth Thomas MP.
Thanks very much. And I'm very grateful to SMMT for offering me this opportunity on behalf of the Labour Party to speak about our plans to support the global ambitions of your businesses. I should at the outset take the opportunity to thank SMMT for the contributions that you've made to our recent thinking, particularly to Mike Hawes and his team. But I know their skill and knowledge is based on the considerable talent across the businesses in SMMT too. And I want, if I may, to ask in particular for your continued partnership with us to make the plans that we've set out recently a reality if we're fortunate to be elected to power. My 19-year-old nephew is currently studying vehicle technology in motorsports in the Midlands. And apart from making me feel mildly inadequate every time we meet with his already extensive knowledge about cars, I'm struck by his pride in what he's learning and his excitement about the jobs and opportunities that he sees for himself in your industry in the not too distant future. I understand his excitement. Yours is an industry of adventure and innovation. It's got remarkable stories and a very proud history. But what I recognise too is that you are an industry that is beginning to experience profound change that's going to require sensible and consistent public policy decisions in the years ahead. As the world pivots to using electric vehicles, your industry should be being championed more by ministers with sensible long-term support to take advantage of the domestic and international opportunities that transition to electric vehicles is beginning to open up. And yet instead there's been this curious mix of top-down policies with little obvious direction or support for industry to make that transition. Government had wanted to ban the sale of petrol cars, yet had failed to secure the battery making capacity needed to ensure electric vehicles are made in Britain. It says it backs British industry, yet it woke up very late and still hasn't sorted the rules of origin requirements issue that risk cutting off your ability to export to our nearest markets and risk putting up the price of electric vehicles very significantly for British consumers. Worse still, we've had the decision to water down the phase out of petrol and diesel vehicles, causing more uncertainty, all of which has put investment of billions worth of pounds at risk. So in our recent party conference, we published our plan for the automotive sector. Your industry is fundamental to our plans to boost British manufacturing, to accelerate exports and achieve the highest sustained economic growth across the G7. We want you to be even more successful so that you can increase jobs and wages further, and in so doing, continue to offer the British people the freedom and pride they deserve in having a reliable car in their driveway. We think there are 6 key areas to work together on. Firstly, to accelerate domestic battery making capacity, to invest in gigafactories and removing the planning barriers to help make that happen. We want to help you train and attract the next generation of highly skilled workers for your industry. We want to support consistently research, development and innovation in new electric vehicle technology. We want to develop new quality standards and deliver a more comprehensive EV charging network to encourage the British people to switch to electric vehicles with confidence. And we want to tackle the high energy prices that we know are holding back competitiveness. And lastly, we want you to increase exports. So we're determined to tackle the unnecessary barriers to trade with Europe that are putting exports at risk and open doors across the rest of the world too, to help secure your supply chains and to achieve further export opportunities too. So first, we understand that future electric vehicle manufacturing will migrate to where electric batteries are being made. That without battery manufacturing gigafactories being located in the UK, vehicle manufacturers would be unlikely to make electric vehicles here. Current domestic battery manufacturing is significantly behind that of our international competitors. So building British capacity at pace has got to be central, we think, to our plans for your sector. So through the National Wealth Fund that we want to create, we would part finance new additional gigafactories using catalytic public investment to unlock much greater sums of private investment, and in turn helping to attract manufacturers to establish production facilities in the UK. The analysis we've had done suggests that this could help create some 80,000 new jobs, power 2 million electric vehicles, and add some £30 billion to the British economy. That transition to electric vehicles will necessitate a rapid shift in the skill sets required for automotive manufacturing. So a potential shortage of skilled workers could hamper your ability to compete globally. To tackle that potential problem, we want to reform the apprenticeship levy. Our growth and skills levy would allow you much greater flexibility to access a wider range of training courses for your workforce. And to ensure skills provision matches local needs, we will support colleges to specialise in the technical skills needed for the future, particularly for electric vehicle transition. And we'll back that up by establishing Skills England, a new body collaborating with central and local government, businesses, training providers and unions to meet the skills needs of the next decade across all the regions and nations of the UK. Research and development, we know, is going to continue to be essential to develop the next generation of electric vehicles. And we know that if Britain is going to be home to the development of more innovative solutions to decarbonising transport, then the automotive sector is going to need certainty and stability in public research and development funding. And so that's why we want to commit to a 10-year automotive research and development funding settlement, matching what we have already said we would do for aerospace too. I live in a household where the should we switch to an electric car now debate is being led by our 8-year-old. I think, if I'm honest, her real preference is not to have to go to school all the time. But what our now daily early morning debates have underlined to me is the need to do more to remove the barriers that hold consumers back from making that transition to electric cars. Important among those issues in terms of building confidence is that there is a charging infrastructure in place to smoothly transition to electric vehicles. Now, we're on course as a country at the moment to miss the aim of having 300,000 public charging points in place by 2030. We're on target to miss that by a decade. Access to charging is already hugely unequal across the UK. So there are more charging points in Westminster alone than in 9 of the biggest northern English cities combined. So we want to establish binding targets on government in Whitehall, but in governments across the UK too, to accelerate that charge point rollout. And we'll redirect existing charge point funding to ensure that there's reliable charging coverage across the whole of the UK. But we understand that it's more than just charging worries that are inhibiting consumers from making the transition to electric vehicles. So Labour would set quality standards for information provided on charging apps so that drivers can know with confidence that a charge point is available or out of order before they travel to that location to charge their cars. And we'd introduce an electric vehicle confident labelling requirement on new electric vehicles, so to give consumers the details they need to make informed decisions about which cars to buy. And we also recognise that more must be done to support a future market of second-hand electric vehicles. So we plan to implement a standardised battery health certification scheme for used vehicles, similar to that already in place in other countries such as Norway. We currently have in the UK the highest electric prices of any European automotive manufacturing country. And we know that lower bills will be particularly key to attracting investment in British gigafactories, as well as increasing competitiveness more generally. So others in our front bench team have already set out comprehensive plans in how we would deliver a zero carbon electricity system by 2030, which we believe will be key to delivering consistently lower energy bills for your sector and other parts of the business community too. In South Harrow, in my constituency, a family business, Orthene Chemicals, that began in the garage of a house close to where I was growing up, now exports brake fluid around the world. One small part of the huge contribution that your industry makes to our exports. I want Orthene and your businesses to be more successful globally. We understand that crucial to that are your European markets. It's over 1,000 days now since the Trade and Cooperation Agreement came into force. And astonishingly, the working group on motor vehicles still hasn't met once. Had it met by now, and had it met regularly, it might have helped ministers and Whitehall understand more quickly and sort out what was at risk from the rules of origin issue, which is bedeviling future investment decisions in your industry and potentially risks putting up very significantly the prices of electric vehicles for British consumers. Frankly, the Prime Minister and Chancellor should be getting involved in sorting this decision, this issue out. It's not clear that they grasp the significance. But what that underlines to us is that the single biggest deal a new government could do to enhance trade is not sign a new free trade deal straight away. It's actually making an existing one with Europe work much better, building a bit more trust with our European friends, and actually using the provisions of the TCA, the review in 2025, the working groups to ease the barriers to trade with our European markets and lower the extra costs that exporters face getting goods to market at the moment. The TCA may be the framework for our relationship with Europe, but it's not a set of concrete walls. With imagination and diplomacy, there's much more that we can hang on that framework. So our approach to trade will be informed by our industrial strategy. We will publish early on a white paper on trade and establish a supply chains task force to help identify provisions for improving resilience in our supply chains and securing access to important markets. We will want, for example, a critical markets partnership with the United States. In the last decade, Britain has seen growth in exports of goods and services fall behind every other member of the G7 apart from Japan. The Trade Show Access Programme, crucial to helping small businesses access international markets for the first time, has been steadily cut back and currently appears to have a close to new business sign hanging on its door. That's one part of why we want to establish climate export hubs in every region of the UK to help capitalise on the switch to net zero, which your industry and others are undertaking, and help you take advantage of those new opportunities, new export opportunities across the globe. I cannot say now where the next general election will leave us in terms of the state of negotiations in the various trade deals that are underway now or are being mooted. But what I can tell you is that if we're elected, and we're taking nothing for granted, if we're elected, then we will want early discussions with you about what, beyond making the TCA work better, what trade deals could make a real difference to achieving the growth that we're determined to deliver. Whether it's in the US or the Gulf, India or Africa, Switzerland or other parts of the Indo-Pacific. And then whether it's about tariffs, intellectual property, regulatory cooperation, business mobility, or more, we will want your input on what government priorities should be. We want the next chapter of your industry's story to be about expansion, not because we're romantic, but because the jobs, the better wages, and the growth that expansion brings are key to delivering a better future for all of the people of our great country. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I hope very much that we can continue to work together to plot a much brighter future for your industry. Thank you.
Well, and a big thank you also to Gareth Thomas.